this meeting to order. Tuesday, December 12th, 2017, 6 p.m. Thank you for coming on such bad weather. Are there any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification?
Yes, I'd like to add item 2C, which is discuss wastewater allocation for former Vermed property.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Deb.
It appears we need to discuss the raise leaving, the usual gratuity or whatever that is done. We never agreed to
No.
where it would come from. So I don't know where you want to put that.
This is about Ray Perry.
The check for Ray that's usually given upon their
Yeah.
departure.
So we can put that under, I guess, 3B.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for reminding me. Is there anything else before we move on? All right. We have the minutes of November 28th.
I move approval.
Second.
All right. I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Is there any public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay. Shane, do you have anything to report?
Yes, I would like to, as announced last week, I've hired Sean McGinnis to be the new Bellows Falls Fire Chief. His first day of duty was, yesterday, but he took command of the fire on Sunday morning at the two-family home at 75 Westminster Street. So our congratulations to Sean McGinnis. My thoughts go out to the Wrights for the devastating fire at that location. I know everybody in the community is pulling for you. Also wanted to report on the hiring of the finance director. I have hired Marlborough, New Hampshire resident Ron Karvosky as the new town finance director. And he comes with a wealth of experience. He'll be starting his first day would be next Monday. On October 24th, I informed the board of the impending retirement of Ray Perry. And as the chief operator of the water plant, I have since promoted assistant chief operator Brian Jocelyn to fill Ray's position upon his retirement. Further promoted Bernie Hines to the assistant operator position to fill the vacancy that Brian leaves behind. Next, on the auction of municipal surplus vehicles and equipment, the bidding ended last Friday, excuse me, a week ago Friday, and did quite well. All in all, we brought in roughly $27,800. Some various ladders for $415, a snow blower for $230, a bunch of different compressors, electronic cabinets, and burners at the sewer department for a little over $1,100. The 4 generators from the sewer department brought in over $25,000. A 04 Crown Victoria Cruiser got us $260, and a 07 Cruiser got us $720. So there's a couple other ancillary things. The pellet boiler, we did not get a decent amount of money, so I rejected the bid. The bid was only $780. It's worth 10 times that. So we'll find another way to look to sell that. But all in all, again, going back to Stefan's recommendation to go into Auctions International is a very, very good idea. It done very well.
I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. That's all I have to report right now.
Thank you, Shane.
Yep.
First item on the agenda is Chief Lake's report on the parking tickets, which we did get something in our packets. Can't find it. Is there any
I have a
comment?
question. I don't know. How much is a parking fine?
Mine was $15. I think it was.
It's 15 for the first offense.
It's in the ordinance anyway.
Yes.
Isn't it?
It is in the ordinances. It's 15 for the first offense, 25 for the second within the same 24-hour.
I wouldn't know about the second because
You paid it.
I paid my first. I'm good about it.
But it can be it can be as high as, if it's a handicapped fee, it can be as high as like $300.
So like if the car stays there for,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can assume that it's probably, each ticket is about probably $15.
Right.
well, the interesting thing is that if you look at these numbers on the sheet, for 2015, 14-15, we collected 5155. If you multiply 433 by 15, that means we collected 79% of the fines levied. Now, you know, I've never done statistical analysis on this kind of thing, but that would seem to me to be a pretty good yield.
Yeah.
16, it was 58%. 16, it was 76%. And so far this year, it's 59%. So I think the issue of delinquencies is maybe not as big an issue as just the consistency of writing the tickets. And I think that I think it came out at the last meeting, the ordinance committee, hopefully they're looking at, in terms of possible enforcement, that they get rid of the boots, and because I guess they're obsolete, and provide for towing or something. But anyway, I think to me the issue is that there's limited amount of funds to be gained from this activity. I think which means to come up with a strategy that's going to cost a lot would be foolish. But I think we need to have a systematic approach to the writing of tickets. And I think what we've got now, if we embellish that a little bit, might be the answer. Anyway, I was pleased with these numbers, actually.
Yes, Deb.
Well, I don't think I necessarily wholeheartedly agree with that. I do think that consistency in collection is also important, but there isn't any way for an officer, unless they're dedicated to parking enforcement, to consistently ticket. So that doesn't happen. That's why that's why I was offering another alternative that we can consider for the next fiscal year. And in addition to that is, when you look at how 59% collected this year, and all of the years, how many of them are forgiven? That's not listed here. And there are a number of them that people bring in and they argue a point and they are forgiven. So a certain percentage of the collection are uncollectible because of that. We don't know that out of those percentages. So there's still information that's, is missing. We can do some interpretation. They're not collected. They've been forgiven, so they are not collectible. I mean, forgiven as in you get a pass, but there was a good reason why they did not need to be ticketed. So, again, I think consistency is not going to come from a full-time police officer, or even a part-time, because they have other duties, and if they get called off, it's the same reason they don't do the crossing guard job, because they cannot consistently stay there without having an emergency that's a higher priority. Parking enforcement is not a high priority for an officer.
I think working with the chief, we can make. I mean, there's not enough money here to pay anything. I mean, if you've got a solution that doesn't cost anything, I'm game for it myself. But I don't know what your plan is, what your thought is. I mean,
my concern is the number of full-time officers, the number of part-time officers. They're not able to consistently ticket. We need an alternative to that. I am not saying we should put in parking meters, although I've heard a lot of people do that. We used to have them, took them out in the 80s. It would be a blemish on the village. I wouldn't want to see that. But at the same time, that's why I think a civilian officer would, even a part-time one who works just during the week of the hours that we are supposed to be ticketing, would be cost effective. Well, something to consider more in budget season.
I don't know if you can do that.
It wouldn't be cost effective.
I don't know if you can do that
would.
because aren't part-time officers here a member of the union too?
I think they are.
So I don't know if we can be replacing, replace the union. And that's a good question. I mean, I think we need an answer on that. But I mean, my experience from having sat here over the years is I don't believe the consistency is necessary. We should put some direction to the manager to give to the police chief to put some more emphasis on it. And I agree with Jake. You summed up best what I was trying to say the last time. Once you start increasing the enforcement, you're going to have less and less offenses because people are going to know there's people out there. We are working with limited resources. We have other personnel items or issues that we're dealing with, and we're trying to. I just can't see hiring somebody to do that. Maybe if the chief and the manager can get together and they can do something with the schedule. And again, as the chief stated here that night, there's plenty of people that pick up the phone to call down to the PD that say, hey, there's somebody parked out here in violation or potential violation or alleged. But I mean, I think we've got to look at being more conservative. And also, I don't know if all these are forgiven. I don't know if that's an accurate statement, or some are forgiven, but I think it's a case of maybe some just didn't get paid. And maybe we need to, as he stated last time, something about collections, emphasize or how we do the collections of people who don't pay on these.
I think there's you bring up good points, but I'm in favor of finding room, in budget season, not immediately, but for a civil officer, because the full-time officers and the part-time officers, their time is very valuable and they're needed elsewhere. They can't be worried about parking.
And we continue to go through this year after year. We had, when there was a civil officer who was handling ticketing, the revenue was up. And I'm not saying this is not necessarily meant to be revenue, but it is meant to be paying for itself. And if I finish, I never said that the rest of those were unforgiven. I said some of them are uncollected and some of them are forgiven. We don't know how many of each. But you can clearly see, extrapolating the data for this year, we are not going to get anywhere near $4,000 or more that we've done in other years. So, I think consistency is important, because that's why we keep going through the same BS year after year. Some years we're ticketing more. We talked to the chief last year, 2 years ago, about having an officer who would do more ticketing, and then we reduce the ticketing so we contract. And then we expand the ticketing, and we contract the ticketing, and the merchants complained, and that's what we're reacting to this. Instead of just taking care of it in a business-like manner, we are reacting to the merchants' expression of exasperation because they're getting PO'd and having to call the PD because they've got consistent people who park over and over again longer than 2 hours in the parking spaces. Those are realities, gentlemen. We want to wait till the merchants all come back down here again and complain about the parking. We lost 7 parking spaces last year because of the MUTC standards, which we minimized. That has an impact as well. So I'm saying we need consistency because it's a business. You don't want to continue to react to an issue as the merchants get mad about it. We need to be consistently handling the problem, so it isn't a problem. That's all I have. That's my opinion. Thank you.
I would recommend just us preparing for that discussion on that at the budget, once we get into budget time. I'm sure the chief will, I'll make sure he works on that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. If we're all set for this, we'll move on to the wastewater department. Rob is here. We have the budget review. Rob, do you have any opening?
On the budget, no. It's the first I've heard about the budget as far as me going through the upgrade that we're doing right now. Just gonna have to stick with the budget that we have. And we're 6 months into the current one. Like I said, we're still under construction, so following year, I'll just have to look at the numbers later on. But right now, it's only the status quo of what we have. So what we know we're gonna have in a year.
I think what I'd like to hear is where we stand on the construction. Are we back running full?
Well, yeah, that's the
Is that
second
B
part.
or A?
Well,
That is
if
B.
he can't talk
That's B.
about the budget, then
Well, he's not. That's not his job to talk about the budget. I can.
I just asked just because
Yeah,
he's
I mean-
here. So.
I mean, insofar as the budget,
Yeah.
I know that the board has been looking for some projections of cash flow for the next 3 years. I'm working with an organization, I think I mentioned in the past, called RCAP, and they are sponsored by USDA Rural Development. This is exactly what they do. They do these kind of analyses of rate structure and cost over time. So we're feeding them information, they're preparing that for us.
But that doesn't get to the issue of this year's budget and the issues that I keep raising about this year's budget.
Right,
It looks like we have a substantial negative number facing us. And I want to try to get a grip on that and what we can do to mitigate it. I notice on this statement, which is starting with the balance sheet, the November 27th statement, that we show a negative cash balance of $421,000. Obviously, they're borrowing from the general fund and the water fund, et cetera. Are we going to be receiving grant money to reduce this number?
Yeah, what you all have is I just handed out a few minutes ago, is a several-page document which includes.
I don't see that.
Oh, yeah, that one right there. I'm sorry. The last page shows the full project budget and where we are on balance to finish, and includes drawdowns from the loans and grant. And we've spent all the money from the rural development loans. At this point, we're working out of grant, but it is reimbursables, and so we spend the money and then we draw down from the USDA rural development and their granting programs. So that's why there's that negative number. We're probably waiting for some money at this time from them. But all in all, we've got contingency of roughly $72,000, and there are some change orders that are being worked on to try to maximize the use of that contingency, because it's all grant money. I prefer not to leave any money on the table on this project, since we've already spent the amount that we are borrowing for. So we have, we're doing a little extra paving here, putting in some fencing there. So there's just trying to make sure that we maximize the benefit of the federal dollars that are coming our way on this. But yeah, it is true that Jake's the issue of the bond payment, which is going to come in this year, which we were originally expecting to come next year, is a problem. And I think one of the things that we're eventually going to end up seeing is a change in the rates. And see how that works out.
That's accentuated by the fact that we're not getting the septage revenue. Mm-hmm. We're going to be short there, probably upwards to $100,000.
And Robert can give you an update on that now, not now, but a little later on where we are on that.
The revenues were over budgeted. At least the Bellows Falls revenues were over budgeted to the tune of another $100,000. So I'm assuming that on the bond payments that Walpole will pay whatever, 25% of those bond payments, but that's 25% of $220,000. So it's still a big number that we're facing. So anyway.
Well, we have a new finance director coming in next week. He's got a lot of things on his plate already. This is certainly going to be one that's of prime importance.
I hope.
Is there any other comments? Nothing further on reviewing the wastewater budget, then the bond project updates. Real? Item B.
Yeah, we're making progress. The plant is coming down to finishing. Can't finish fast enough as far as I'm concerned, but we did get blacktop down before the snow, so we're not plowing dirt this year. It's all tarred where it needs to be tarred. At least the base coat is in, and then come springtime, we get back into paving and then finish the top part of it, and that's part of it. Because we still got some stuff going on, equipment moving around, so they want to top it all off and not get a good look at the end. So we decided to wait until in the spring, and then we can do the topsoil, seed, grass, everything that needs to happen. The fence is up for the most part. where they relocated it around the thing. We're still working on getting the gate working on remotely. Right now, you just gotta open it manually and close it manually, which is fine. But it's just, now it's weather, everything's snowed. We got, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 inches of snow out there, so now everything gets buried. So it's gonna be a slower process, but for the most part, we're done outside. Some electrical work that needs to be done on the digester covers. We are making gas in the digesters, which is a good thing. So we can start that system in the flare that goes along with that. They can't really start the flare until we make methane, so we can burn it. So we're working, getting that done. We have to heat trace it, put the electrical cord inside near the heat trace, and then insulate all the gas pipes because they're outside now. So when the methane transfers from one digester to another, one tank to another, there's moisture in it. So in New England, moisture freezes. So everything has to be heat traced, and they're working on that. I mean, it's a process. We had in a change order of adding heat trace to the horizontals were heat traced, but the verticals weren't. And I said I want to use the verticals because I'm afraid that thing would start getting frozen smaller and smaller, and we're only talking 3 inches, and then come February, it's cold enough that now gas can't go from one tank to the other. The furnaces are up and running, so we're making progress. The painters are in painting inside the buildings. Most of everything has its first coat on it. Now we're waiting for electricians to put on the conduit and then go back for the second coat of paint. So the office work is coming. Right now, my office is a shambles, but we'll put it back together. It's just gonna take time, and it's just the end of the stuff. Everything trying to get done all at once, and it has to go in a sequence, We just can't rush. We can't paint before the electricians are done, so. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
We did do a change order to extend the project time frame, so we're gonna have a winter shutdown.
Yeah, they're going to a winter shutdown next month and then come back in the spring, which is to finish up the stuff that basically you can't do this time of year. There's some painting of one of the tanks that has to be done. We just ran out of temperature. It got too cold, so it has to be a certain range for the paint because it's epoxy type paint. So decided to do that in the spring also. So there'll be some work. April, May, whenever it's
So
I think that the question I have is that if the plant has got X capacity.
Yeah.
When you're finished.
Yeah.
How much capacity are you able to employ right now?
As far as we're running about flow-wise, we're running about a third of the capacity flow, but that's just one component of it. Then you got the loading part, which has been less now because we're not taking septage. You add septage into it, that's another loading part of the plant. So, and then you got Walpole, which they've got a project coming online over at the Oval Valley's building. So there's gonna be some more loading there that's gonna be added to the plant.
it's organic.
No, but I guess what you're saying is that the plant is
The
is
plant is
fully
about
operational.
50%, I believe the report that we had,
Is what?
50%
50%.
at the loading rate for the BOD is what we're gonna work into next, I'm assuming, the next conversation in part C of the wastewater. So yeah, we're about 50% right now. So
And when will we be at 100%?
I have no idea when we'll be at 100%.
I mean,
You don't really
Well,
want to
I
be.
just
You don't
mean-
want to be at 100% of your plant,
No,
because
but-
then it all depends on growth in town.
Oh,
Okay,
I
but
think we're talking two different
no,
things.
I think what Jim meant is what,
Back to normal.
You're
When
saying
will-
back
back
to
to
normal?
Back
or
to
the BO
normal.
Oh,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
plant basically everything is online now. Okay, all the tanks are running. The digesters are just starting to come into making methane. We're working on getting the final steps of once we get methane, then we can have the cover. Digester 3 is a and I don't know if you've seen it from Route 12, but there's a white bubble.
Yeah.
Well, inside that white bubble is a green bubble, and that holds gas. And right now we don't have gas in that; we have air to blow that bubble up because manufacturer told us we could do without the air, and we ripped the cover, so they had to come back and fix the cover. So that and it happens. That the guy said it happens all the time because you just knew it running it. And then we asked him before he left, well, how we could operate it, and they said, yeah, go ahead. And we wanted to clean the digester because it had stuff from when we cleaned the big tank. the big digester tank, so we got that all fixed. Now we have methane, so the digesters are probably about 50% capacity, because we're still working the bugs out of that, and we have to get methane methane, I guess you wanna say, good enough to burn, because it's, you know, you can build methane, but it has to burn off. And that startup's gonna happen next week. So, when we have that, we should be at, the plant should be at 100% capacity as far as.
And when would you then be able to start accepting septic again?
Yeah, we're working on a computer glitch right now. We added a new, I'm not in the computer thing, but we added a new firewall to the plant because we have the SCADA. So in that, there's a glitch there that we're talking, that it won't talk, the septic won't come in and talk to the computer because of that firewall. So I've talked to the guy today, the electrician from EII. They're working on that, and they're supposed to be on site Friday, the last I heard today.
There's not a whole lot of septors this time of year either.
Yeah, no, septic is pretty much dropped off, so, but I wanted to be up the first of the month, and we had this whole problem, and we're still trying to figure out, the computer won't talk to our computer, which basically tells us who dumped, how much they dumped, and where it came from, you know, it prints out the ticket. They get a ticket on that end because we've done, you know, test ones, but it won't download to our computer, so we know how much to bill. So I don't want a bunch of stuff sitting there, not being able to see what they put in the plant. So we're working on that. Well, hopefully it'll be resolved this week. And the septic will be back open again. But yeah, it's just like I said, it's a slow process right now, and now that winter's upon us, it's a little slower. Just gotta bear with it.
And as far as, for those who may or may not be familiar or may have forgotten, just like the water plant, the treatment plant is larger than what we need as a community, but that was to anticipate the future and growth, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. When they built, I don't know how that all came about, of when they upgraded from in the 80s, from the original primary plant to go to a secondary plant, why the number they came at, but I mean, yeah, it's a whole state process that you go through and how much capacity you get.
So we're pretty much to normal where we,
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come.
Well, what I handed out to the board members is the latest, just a list from our engineer as to what's happened in the past few weeks, past month. You know, this is all the different work going on. I also included the most recent change order that extends the construction time frame into the spring. And then lastly, as I said before, the monthly project budget report, which is pretty comprehensive, showing we've got a $9.8 million project.
Is there any other comments or questions? Yeah, thank you, Bob. All right, item C, wastewater allocation for the former Vermed property.
With us here is Rich College, who is somehow related to the ownership of Vermed. I don't know the exact arrangement, but he and I have been in discussions with BDCC and also with a potential new user of the facility. And one of the issues that we've been discussing is wastewater allocation. And I'm not sure what you want to say or can say, but I'll just start off at that level. And one of the things they did do is, because the property's in the town, but we would be using the village wastewater facility, I hired an engineer to take a look at what the impact of this potential user would be on the plant. And it's something we should talk about because it is a relatively high load user. And maybe you can take it from there, Rich.
Yeah, gladly. We have, the good news is we have a couple of active prospects for the property. And the one prospect that Shane is talking about, critical factor is the ability to use the sewage capacity, because they're in a food processing business, specifically a dairy processing business. So the waste going into the sewer would be what I would call kind of watered down milk. it wouldn't be a chemical, it would be a dairy product. Where you are in a sense, competition with a couple of other communities for this particular prospect. The reason being that if you studied a similar operation in Brattleboro, went from 0 to almost 150 jobs, and the prospects are to add 100 to 200 jobs in the community. We have, in one sense, an ideal site because we had a builder describe that you got the best industrial property in the state of Vermont right now, but in addition to the building itself, there's also 15 acres, so it gives room for expansion. But the critical factor in their business is the sewage allocation. And what they're really looking for is a community that, number one, has capacity, which in one sense, hats off to everybody here that have a $10 million sewage project that the town is just completing, but also has the sewage capacity going forward, and also, if need be, would continue to work with this company to grow with the company as time goes forward. So they're not asking for a firm commitment to that tonight, but Shane and I talked about it. What they're really interested in is knowing whether or not the trustees and the community is supportive of that kind of thing. I related to it. My experience at Vermed with the town has been exceptional in my mind, because the town's been was very supportive of our business. As you may know, Vermed started in Bellows Falls, one person. It took advantage of the industrial park when that was developed. Even when the management team bought the company back, at one point the town came forward, participated in the financing, loaned us some money, did tax abatement. So I related to them. My experience with the town has been nothing but positive, but they are mindful and want to make sure that that's the kind of town they're doing business with. So I think what they're looking for is kind of whether the town would embrace that or not. That's why I'm here tonight. Shane and I talked about this. I think he has some statistics on what capacity it would use over time. It would certainly use greater capacity over the next 5 years, which again, Shane has, and I don't want to speak for him, but to me, it's kind of, do we want to utilize that asset to bring jobs in the community or not? So that's kind of the bottom line for me. Shane.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned that I had done is I hired our Alderson Elliott, who's our standard engineer, to review not only the existing conditions at the wastewater plant, but also the potential for build out in Walpole, who's our partner with the plant, and also take a good look at the characteristics of the wastewater from this business based upon the information they've supplied to us. And I don't expect the board to review all this at this time, but at another time, we were aware that we weren't really, Jakes, this, you could take one and pass it down. This is, this again is a preliminary discussion. I want to take it home and read it at some point. Long story short is it is a high BOD load characteristic of the wastewater, and at full build out after several years, it would bring the sewer plant to a capacity of roughly 70%, which is a high number. And the water, the amount of water going through a hydraulic would be a bit less. Quite a bit less.
Probably 700,000, about half, probably.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very high BOD level, and it really, whether or not this can happen really is a political decision on the part of the board, whether or not it wants to offer up that much capacity to a single user. And this is something to bring home and read, but that's the long and the short of it. And if a community's wastewater plant is at 80%, on a consistent basis, once it gets to 80%, you have to look into redesign to address that level of loading. And so while we've just gone through a redesign and rehab of the whole facility, we would have to be looking at another one. But I'm not saying that getting it to 80% is within 5 or 10 or even 20 years, we don't know. But it's just something to keep in mind, that this is an unusual type of manufacturing use insofar as wastewater is concerned, and it needs to be carefully thought about.
You know, it's not too often that we hear potential for 100, 200 jobs.
Yep.
We're having a tough economic time in this community, not just the village, but things with the town, budget-wise, et cetera. You know, I'm not sure how this would affect this material going through this plant, other than what's been briefed here. And you mentioned another potential.
No problem with the other one on
Yeah.
sewage. No consideration really.
I mean,
It's a critical factor for this prospect.
that's probably not in the same ballpark as the 1 to 200 jobs either, right? And you know, if we are, I won't say maxing out or peaking out, but that's what we've been looking for in terms of getting getting more users, because it helps the rates for everybody. But if you've got one mega user, so to speak, as alternate, I think that you know, from looking at it from the outside looking in, that could be beneficial to the other ratepayers and everybody as a whole. So I like what I hear, although I haven't heard enough, but I think it's worth exploring and taking a serious look at it. I would encourage the board to do so.
I would recommend it if there is, hopefully when there is a more comprehensive discussion about this, we can have our engineer here and available to answer any questions that the trustees may have.
Aside from the plant, which, you know, how long would we wait around here to maybe reach the 70 or 80% capacity? It could be, what, another decade, or it could be 3 decades or more. But also, you're talking the amount of possibility for employment. They've got to live somewhere, they've got to eat somewhere, they go to shop somewhere. Hesitant to use the word revitalization, but you know, they're going to look into housing. They're either going to buy housing, rent housing, or some capacity. They may not all live here in the community or in the town, but there'll be commerce that would be generated, and I'm interested. I can't speak for everybody else, but
one of the things that the report does point out is that there's there would absolutely have to be pre-treatment at the facility, at the location itself, to dial down the pH and the BOD and things like that. And then we have a pump station out there that very likely has some limitations on what it can handle. So that needs to be looked at some point as to whether or not it can even handle it. I'm sure it can with retrofitting. But anyway, you'll see in that report, there's other potential users out there that need to be accommodated. But I think the project deserves a comprehensive look at it at an upcoming meeting.
Rob, do you have any comments?
There's still a lot of questions still that I have that we'll hopefully address in the upcoming conversations that we'll have. Pump station being one of them, the allocations that are committed to other people right now. And just what the company is willing to do, because if the pH is low, like they say it is, you're gonna have an odor problem. You're gonna have a corrosion problem. So it's gonna eat up the infrastructure over time. Immediately, but over time. So that stuff is, it's worth discussing. I'm all for it, but I just want to take the right steps to make sure that it's the right fit too. I don't want to have it all come on and then all of a sudden they need another phase to go from, the BOD at the 5-year plan and now the BOD at the 7-year plan. Do we have that?
Well, based on my review of the numbers, I was going to say, can you start tomorrow? But I think I agree with Stefan 100%. I think we've a number of people in the community have done a lot of work in trying to prepare our village and our town for more employment opportunities. We know that the ability of our people to sell homes or demand for homes is very low. I'm sure our merchants would love to be rewarded with additional business. I think that, obviously, if it's a good fit and we've got a good partner, because it would obviously be a partnership type of thing going forward with a company like this. I'm very enthusiastic about this prospect.
Jim, you said a key word, because I think that's really what they're after, because they know that they have to work with the town, with the city, and the city has to work with them on this. And so that partnership, I think, is a key thing, which is why we're here tonight. If this board doesn't want to embrace that, then, this is not the right prospect for us to talk to. If the board is enthusiastic about it, then, it is the right prospect for us to talk to. And incidentally, as I said, that we're not the only option. So it's, there's other communities that are going to work hard to attract this company, obviously. So that's why, we need the spirited endorsement of this group, or not. I mean, if the group's not enthusiastic about it, then, that's the way it is.
Right.
I just want to.
Sure. It's not uncommon. I see, and I've read, and I'm familiar with one company to an extent that has a treatment plant on site, and it's not, maybe half the size of this room, but where, they return the water probably at a better quality or as equivalent quality as it came in, for example. But it's not uncommon to have some treatment going on at that facility before it would reach our facility.
Yep.
So that's not uncommon.
Joe.
Yeah, is there any information on what the wage scale would be for these jobs? Because I can't get a report. You're talking about 12 hours.
Well, and I can tell you this, there are people in a similar plant in Brattleboro that are in the $70,000 to $100,000 range. I mean, these are good jobs, good paying jobs. So, I mean, I can't speak for that company.
I was just asking if
But
there's
it's,
any info on that you were given that stipulates what that.
We don't have any.
Nothing that the village or the town is privy to at this time.
Yeah,
I think we just give the waters tonight.
that's exactly right.
On the surface, I don't see anything wrong with this. I'd definitely be, again, like, can you start tomorrow? That sort of thing. Because it's an indicator of growth. If another business moves in, it actually attracts other businesses to do the same. Again, Rob Wheeler has said, working through the process, it's not reinventing the wheel necessarily. It's been done in other areas like Brattleboro. They handle it, so I'm sure that's knowledge that'll be gained, and working with a potential new business that looks like something on the surface, like I said, it's very positive. So I'm for it.
Rob, when we're looking at like the on this page 6 on this form, just to look at the design phase. So when they're talking the current design, an average monthly influent BODs at 2802 pounds per day, that's what we can handle after this upgrade?
Yeah, I believe that's what our capacity.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what the design is.
Yeah.
Is a 2802,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then with the future tent, that's what goes to it goes to 7%.
Right. But, yeah, as a all out. I mean, when we're looking at what we've got now in the village, we're at 33% capacity. Obviously, we're not gearing this towards, a residential population increase of what it would be. We need to attract businesses. So I certainly think it's something, I'd be all for considering. So,
Yeah, I want to hear more.
Yeah. In one sense, I suspect that Bellows Falls is, I would like to think, a little unique to have the capacity right now. Where you can say, look, you can handle this for the next 5 years or so. And what a nice problem to work on in the future if it grows bigger than that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Miles, thank you for allowing us on the agenda so we can talk a little bit about it. And I know Jim had to ask at the last moment to get it added, so thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. I look forward to hearing more.
All right. Up next, we just have the 2018 budget status.
Yeah, we're at actually 41% of the budget year. So far as the general fund is concerned, as you know, we don't have too many issues. We've got to return some money on the revenue side for fire alarms. We are, insofar as union negotiations, village attorney, we did increase those budget lines, but we're still pretty heavy on those. There's been a lot of activity, as you know. We still have not, Jigs, I'm sure as you're about to say, we haven't done the journal entry yet for the Rockingham tax refund. It's just, but according to our auditor, it's not zero. It's the 23 less the 8,000. Anyway, we haven't made that change to this as of yet.
Well, it's not the 23 less the 8,000. It's zero.
Okay, well, it's not according to our auditor, but we'll work it out. It's just that we got other things that we've been working on. But other than some of the revenue matters that with wastewater that was mentioned by Jigs earlier, we're doing okay, I'd say.
It's a fluid situation. I mean, the general fund budget is in great shape compared to the sewer treatment plant. So anyway, I think we're on target at this point. So.
Okay. Any other comment? All right. We have item B. We're just going to talk about the. If there's nothing else. All right. Item B. We're just going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
For employees' retirement. What were we going to do, and where were we going to find that money? Any thoughts, Shane? Or?
I was expecting that because it's a water department employee, we would derive funds from the water department because Ray has been a very valuable employee to this community for a good long time, and that's my thinking. I wasn't anticipating it being on the agenda.
Oh. Only because it came up, a meeting ago, whatever, that it's typically, it's best practice, that's what we've done. However, because of budget challenges, our expense line is typically, I thought that's where in the past that money would have come out of. Our village expenses are only $500 for the trustees, and we've already used $125. So you see what I'm saying? What has happened in the past with village employees who have retired? Where is that money coming out of? Do you know? What budget line? Do you know?
No, I've not been. No one's retired since I've been
Yes.
here years. I couldn't tell you, but I would imagine because it was a water department employee, it would be a water department expense. But we could take from elsewhere. We could take it from different budget lines. But my sense is I'd like to take it all from one budget line so we can easily better account for it.
I think it's I certainly, having retired myself, I'm aware of gifts for retirees. I know we always used to pass the hat.
We're doing that already.
And I'd be happy to participate in passing the hat. I think the slippery slope is, what's the terms? I mean, do you have to work here 35 years to qualify for this, or can you work here 2 years to qualify for this? We're talking about taxpayers' money or user fee monies. we're talking about unbudgeted items. It's not best practice. It's just not the way to do these things. And so like I said, this is not a budgeted expense. I don't think it's something we should incur. But I certainly, respecting the individual and the years of service, I'd be happy to make a contribution to a gift for the retiree.
What does everybody else think?
I would think
Yeah.
the trustees' expense budget line, may fall short, but I think we should use that, and then the remainder, I mean, we can make up for the water fund if that makes it more comfortable. But I think there is, the danger of a slippery slope, but we only have so many employees, and I mean, this has been a very important employee. So I think I don't think we're on any dangerous ground here.
How long have we been doing this type of thing? Did we do it when Stockwell was here, or and Floyd, or? So it doesn't ring a bell with me, but I probably concur with Jiggs.
Well, there've been retirees in the last year.
3 in the last few years.
But any of them were specifically village positions? I mean?
No, but the village did the same as the town did.
Oh, okay. Because they're,
They were shared,
town hall employees, they were not,
they were shared employees.
okay.
Oh, is that a stretch or a? Yeah.
How much are you talking about?
The usual amount is
500.
500. So we're only short 125.
Yeah. I'm willing to help contribute to
As am I. Yeah. I mean, if that solves
make up the
problem,
difference so it comes out
I'll
to.
throw that in. Yeah.
So you have 375 of it already, trying to scrape.
No,
it
that
wasn't
wasn't
really-
budgeted for that, no.
No, it wasn't, I mean, the expenses are usually used for things like classes and, kinds of things, or sending cards for, or grieving flowers or something like that sort of thing. It doesn't have a lot of regular use. So, and again, we don't have a lot of retirees, so it isn't budgeted really in the water department. I mean, what, I don't know what account line you'd put that in, but, so typically it's coming from the village, therefore I would think it's a trustee expense. So. But I think we can make it work.
I think so.
Yep.
Okay.
So just a general consensus of, maybe not consensus, but most of us are saying find a way.
Well, I'm not,
Well,
but not using the taxpayers' money, no.
You're gonna pass around a hat and then leave it up at the clerk's office and just make an announcement if any resident wishes to come down.
Turn into a fight.
Maybe donate. There's a lot of people know Ray, and I'm sure you get a lot of support. May give more than 500.
Oh, good. Put it in the fund balance.
That's how many people.
I'm sure he could. Yeah. It's a matter of should we have to put out the hat when this is such a
So,
You put the hat out for a lot of things.
Well, the coming years, we're gonna have a lot of people retiring little by little.
yeah,
Something to think about.
that's true.
Bad practice.
Okay, so then we need a motion then, in that case, in order to make sure it happens. I move that we approve the $500 retirement benefit for Ray Perry.
I'll second.
discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, 1 against. Great, overtime and comp time reports. Any comments? Anything?
I feel better this one, this.
This looks
2
nice, yeah,
weeks
actually, compared to
On the
others.
overtime account. I thank the chief for his efforts and the water and sewer department management for their efforts.
Because we don't have the highway department, so that's.
A little overtime there.
Yeah, of course.
Fire and police call logs? All right, we have the task list.
Oh, okay, so the crosswalk lighting will be discussed on the 19th, is that correct? That's the joint, so, okay.
Oh, no, we're not on the 19th.
We not? Oh, when is that, the January one? or-
Yes.
Okay, when's, January what, do you know?
I believe it's the 30th.
January 30th, 2018. Oh my God, here comes the new year. Parking is still gonna be ongoing budget season, I'm assuming, based on what we had said today, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Miles, you might wanna go down the list, I'm
Oh,
just
no,
jumping
I'm
into it.
just kind of tend to move faster than everyone else on this, but bridges, there's
Okay.
really no movement there. Housing,
Yeah, no.
that list,
Oh,
the
there's
lister's
a list on
office.
the back here, stapled on the listers.
Oh, good, okay.
Ah, there it is.
Good.
That's much appreciated from the listers.
Yeah, take a look at that.
Yep.
Um,
So we'll probably have discussion on it after we've had a chance to mull it over a bit.
I think public service committees, that's pending.
Yeah, pending,
Community safety, you know, popsicle index,
yeah.
etc.
It hasn't really come up so far, I mean, it's sort of, you know, has an ebb and flow when we think there's really an issue.
The next is ordinances, and I'll make an announcement now and at the end of the meeting, but tomorrow's scheduled ordinance meeting for 8 a.m. is postponed, so the next meeting won't be until the new year.
Right, yeah.
So we'll let everyone know that.
The 3rd,
Third.
January 3rd.
January 3rd.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe put claims on my data by then.
Policies are still waiting for ordinances. Jobs. We just had a discussion.
And we did,
about
that was
And a
good.
report.
Excellent.
It hasn't been done yet.
Evaluation is pending. Sale of village property was,
Is this just,
that was great news.
is
Well,
this,
we still need to deal with a couple of,
yeah.
the boiler and all that, but,
Still.
and we got more to do next spring, I imagine, we've got all kinds of stuff, particularly with the wastewater plant, and once everything's done, and now, you know, we've got a lot of surplus, old stuff that we pulled out of there. Getting a lot of, scrap metal, that we've been getting thousands of dollars on scrap metal.
oh, has prices on scrap gone up? I mean, I know it goes up.
Well, we've just had it sitting there, and we
Yeah.
bring it down to, Marlboro, New Hampshire, and get some good money for it. Well, decent money.
Are these showing in our revenue numbers, or I guess they are?
That would be in wastewater, yeah, that's coming in as revenue, miscellaneous revenues on those.
Okay.
Yeah, including, with these generators, that's, you know, over $20,000 worth of revenue.
You get better rates down in Marlboro, scrap, than Charlestown.
Rob shops it around, and he gets a pretty good deal wherever he goes. I presume he's shopping around everywhere.
Miles,
Yes.
I hate to
Oh,
drag you back up.
to the
but-
listers, yeah.
Yeah, back to the listers report. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm wondering, are these actively grand list properties, not ones that are sitting, owned by the town now, or does it include any of those?
My understanding is they just simply went to the use column, doesn't matter who owns it.
Okay, so it includes ones that aren't really active right now.
I imagine it does.
Okay.
I can't confirm, but I would
Okay,
imagine.
thank you, I just figured it did, okay.
Right.
I would think it has Church Place on there.
Yeah, but that's
That's what
not
you're
going
getting
anywhere right now. Unless it's down, it's not it. That's gonna be fun.
Is there anything we want to talk about goals again this month, or we can just move on to the next agenda?
I think we'll move on.
All right. The
Yeah.
next agenda. What do we have?
Oh, next
The
one.
next agenda is the day after Christmas.
I suggest we pass on.
Postpone
Yeah.
that meeting. That's usually what happens.
I would be
For
okay
years
with
it
that.
has
There it is, but then you go, nah.
Leave it up to the president to.
Well, it's my birthday, so
Oh, well, there you
It's a
go.
big no.
I'm on vacation that week.
birthdays.
So our next regular meeting would be,
So-
the 9th.
All right.
January 9th.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, the next regular
Change it.
meeting will be moved to the 9th, and do we have anything on the slate for that? I mean,
Well,
budget.
I would recommend a sort of a directive to me on the budget. Where does the board want to see the budget go? Because we'll
Yeah.
be starting it.
Preparing numbers and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to see,
Yep.
X percent cut, X percent increase, zero fund, whatever it is? Just, I'd like to get some kind of budget direction from the
Idea, yeah.
board.
That sounds good. Oh, yeah, and then next Tuesday,
I think if we can reconvene on this sewer treatment plant issue, that would be, I think that would be appropriate.
Yep.
on the 9th.
And if for some reason, though, they need to push the project along, if they need a quick answer or something like that, we could have a special meeting at some point.
okay,
If
so,
need be, this is an important project, and it's an important decision on the part of the trustees.
so budget expectations, update on the commercial properties, wastewater usage.
Former Vermed property.
Former Vermed.
Okay,
And, whatever the date, yeah, I'm open for any special meeting on that subject.
Do we typically if our meeting is January 9th, do we kind of like the following Saturday, the 13th, would that be a budget meeting? Is that what we meet on?
Not yet.
No, not yet, because I need to go back, once the board gives direction, I need to go to the departments. Say, you gotta cut this, you gotta, these are the things that we need to do to accomplish the board's goals. So it's gonna take a little doing once we get there.
And would we be into that by January?
We're gonna take a look at last year's schedule.
And the only reason I'm
We don't
asking,
usually start the village until the town is put to bed, which
Right.
will be mid-January.
okay, so by the
So
end
by
of January, we start.
February, usually, we
Okay.
do a Saturday meeting.
Yeah.
because most likely I would not be available myself for any meetings in January on weekends due to the requirement of my employer, so.
Yeah, it's usually not till February.
Yeah.
I would have to do meetings in February on the phone because of my employer.
Okay. Your employer.
We calling in long
Go to
distance
Dame?
from somewhere? or-
We can set that up.
We can phone
Go to Jake, Final Four.
No,
No, is there anything further? Because there's the joint board
Yeah,
meeting,
you
we
just got-
already talked about,
Yeah.
crosswalk
that's
lighting.
next Tuesday, right?
Yep.
next Tuesday. What's on that? Just a
Oh,
reminder, because
we got it
you
all
keep trying to
down.
add stuff we don't have time for.
The joint board for next Tuesday is, we're gonna discuss about a public works director and also the manager's evaluation.
Mhm.
And then there's a select board meeting after that.
That
It's only
was-
like a 45-minute meeting,
Yeah, that was starting at 5, right?
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
Jesus, I know 6 o'clock's bad.
Right. So if there's nothing
5
else.
o'clock we start?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't, I own the business card.
We have orders, bills, and warrants to approve.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And other business, start with Shane.
Nothing, thank you.
Tim?
I'm good.
Stefan?
Just reading the police log, I noticed there seems to be some activity going on there with the heroin, et cetera. So-
Today,
Oh, man, today you
Well,
should
not
see
just
that.
today, I'm talking over course, but yes, today, and I think it's, they're out there, they're taking care of what is a problem in the whole state, and, so I think that's, for the guys and the girls there at Bataville,
Excellent work. And
that's all.
yeah, thanks, Stefan. I have, I can't recall at the moment, but again, thank you to law enforcement, thank you to the fire department. This is great work, but it's neat.
Okay, that's really, great turnout for Ladies Night last Friday. You guys had a
Yes.
showing there. and then I think the men's night is this Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that right?
that's right.
Yes.
Not just for
It's
men, is that what
not
it
just,
said?
it's not just men's
right.
night, and as well as the usual third Friday events. So the whole, there'll be events all over the square and you know, in the Wool Building, and it'll be nice.
Star Wars is playing too.
And Star
Yes.
Wars.
Star Wars. Right. There we go.
So if you want that unique novelty bucket,
That's right.
buy the large popcorn or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Collector's
Oh,
item.
speaking of that, though, I want to mention that we are going to do snow pickup on Thursday night, overnight.
Got it.
So
Oh,
that
like municipal lots and stuff?
yeah,
and
everything's going to
parking
get done
spaces.
Thursday night so that the weekend is clear and open.
Super.
Snow removal just in the square?
I know it's going to be in the square. I don't know about the parking lots right now.
All right. Deb?
I just want to say thank you to the entire community, and who, a lot of hands been put out in our meet, and especially to the BFPD and the BFFD, for the quick response time. Everyone was, for those who keep asking, different friends, and they keep asking me, everyone who was in all the occupants, including the pets, were removed safely and quickly from the building, and no one was harmed except, I understand, one or two fire officers who minor injuries. So again, thank you very much to our community and otherwise to let you know we are reconstructing. The building will be rebuilt. We will not be leaving the village we love. We will, in a year and a half, we will be good or as new or better. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have need for several executive sessions.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to find the premature general public knowledge of labor relations agreements with employees and confidential attorney-client communications will clearly place the municipality at a substantial disadvantage by disclosing legal procedures.
I'll second.
All right, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I move that the Bellows Falls trustees enter executive session for labor relations agreements with employees and confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body. 1 VSA 313A1, and invite village attorney Ray Masuko, municipal manager Shane O'Keefe, and HR coordinator Carrie Bennett to attend.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right.